Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Helt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Brad Wheeler, and he is the president of Shaker Investments, where he leads the firm's strategy, business development, and operations. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.
So, Brad, give us a little background on you. I know you've done other stuff besides there at Shaker. You've done some commercial lending and business development and things. So, give us your background.
Sure. I started, I had an internship in a bank when I was in college. I went to Miami, Ohio. And what I learned that I liked was breaking down companies and figuring things out. So I started in the banking business, middle market lending, where you have to, you have audited statements sometimes they're handwritten statements. So you have to spend a lot of time figuring out how the business is operating. Did that for a while. And it's interesting. One of my clients was spinning out a division, an equity research business. I set up the term loan and the working capital financing, and about 6 months later, ended up going to work for that firm on the equity research side. So it took me from sort of lending companies money to moving into the public equity markets, where I was a institutional salesperson calling on the mutual fund managers at Fidelity and the Harvard's endowment, to give them stock ideas. So still thinking about companies, just going from sort of small and middle market companies to public companies, where we would provide research ideas and try to help our clients make money.
Right. What got you over to Shaker?
So it's funny, I got a call from a search firm out of New York. And Shaker Investments was a buy-side firm that had been big, had shrunk down, and was run like a family office, and they were looking to grow again. Mm-hmm. And I met with the head search firm, and so it's not really what I do. I'm more on the sell side. The buy side is where you're growing a business and running products. And it turned out the owner, I met with him and his the management team here, and they made me an offer. And the funny thing was, he spent all this money on a New York search firm, and I lived 6 blocks away from him. And he said, right, you could have saved me a lot of money. But I said, I didn't know you were looking. I didn't know I was looking. Right. So that led me to Shaker. And it was interesting because it was really going from a established firm of 100 people doing, between 35 and 50 million in revenues, to a small business of 7 people at the time. And we were breaking even, but we had a plan, and we walked through how we would make this business grow. And it was different, and also it stimulated me, it made me use my brain a little bit differently. I thought I knew a lot about stocks, and I do know that's one of my strengths, but some of the terminology and how these products fit into the financial world, there is a lot of new, not a lot of things I had to learn. And so I've actually really, I've enjoyed that part of the job. Mm-hmm. So, and we're up to 11 people. We've almost doubled the business in 4 years. And that's with, awesome. We do a lot of small cap stocks, and that's without a small cap bid. It's been all the large guys that have been running this market. So knock on wood, if I could get a small cap bid, I think that, we've got some growth plans heading into the next 3 to 5 years.
Right. So, I guess, what is it about what you're doing now that excites you, gets you jazzed up in the morning to come in, to the office and knock down some doors?
It's as I moved through my career in different financial service areas, I think the one thing I liked about the markets was, I'm a big hockey guy. I played in college, and at 9:30 the game starts. At 4:00 the market closes, and you get a scorecard every day. You get a scorecard. And for me, I don't quit at 4, even though that's when the game stops. It's kind of that looking at how we're doing against the rest of the marketplace and going out there and talking about Shaker Investments to prospects and clients, about why what is our niche? How do we do things a little bit differently? And it's a little bit of hand-to-hand combat, kind of like I look at a city, I try to find 6 or 7 prospects in there. I go really hard, and then I try to do a real good job of follow up and maintaining developing that relationship.
Mhm.
So to get back to your question, what gets me going is the ability to meet people, help them make money, help their clients make money. A typical client, we have a regional bank which has hundreds of wealth managers, and it took me a long time, but I'm on their platform. But all of these guys reach out to me with, "Hey, how's your small cap doing? How's this product doing?" So now that I'm there, with that firm, I can help those guys really educate their clients about how we're doing. And in that product, we're the small cap asset class for some of the wealth managers at that institution. So
Great, great. Um, because you've led businesses, over your time, what has been the biggest challenge of scaling up Shaker right now?
um, I think the biggest challenge is, especially as a sales and marketer, you're going to have, I don't want to call it rejection, but it just takes a long time. There is the selling cycle is pretty long, and you
Right.
have to have confidence in your strategy and the plan that's been put in place. Um, and we have scaled, as I mentioned, we've almost doubled the business. And when we hit the certain critical mass, I recognized that from a client service standpoint, I wasn't going to be able to do everything. And that's when we sort of said, okay, what challenge is there now? And we had to find another person. And I brought another person on board who'd been in operations. She had a CFP. She was very smart. And I said, Ashley, I think you do a great job in client services and selling for us. So it was kind of a transition of, as you scale, you hope your strategy is right and you believe in it. And as it happens, what's the next step people wise is kind of a big challenge for me. And I look at my whiteboard here, like 400 million is like my next, 12 months. If I can get there, I've decided that's where I need another slot for a client service person. Because the hardest client to get is the one you lost, because it just takes a long time to get clients. So I want to make sure that as we grow, as we scale, that we're taking care of the existing clients that are with us. And it's not a perfect numbers thing, but I can feel when she's getting bogged down, I'm getting bogged down. I say, okay, how can we improve this for clients? And that's sort of how I think about as we scale, what's the next step with client services.
Right. I think that, a lot of people um, discount what you just said about, acquiring, clients and being able to provide the service to them, because it's always so much more expensive to get a new client than it is to keep a client. And lots of times everybody's out there, especially salespeople are out there looking for that, who's that next person that I'm going to get, instead of, you may have 20 people coming in the front door, but when you got 15 leaving on the back end, yeah, you're still coming ahead, but you need to shore that up. What are some of the things that you guys are doing to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Sure. Um, well, when I joined the firm, uh, we weren't communicating enough with clients and prospects. And we started with a quarterly letter. We wrote a letter to clients, but also prospects. I had to revise it to educate and keep people updated on what we were doing as a firm and how the performance was. So a little bit more in just quarterly. We do a quarterly letter, and then we found that people liked it if if it provided enough information. So we do a 1-page monthly to let people know something that's changed, or maybe we'll talk about tariffs, or we'll talk about something going on in the market. Um, I was just at a conference in Colorado Springs, Future Proof, and it was interesting. There was bigger firms than us, smaller firms, but they're talking about AI and how we use it, and we are using it. And uh, it's interesting. Like I want to make sure with AI, I think I can compete a little more efficiently against some of the larger firms, but we've got our client and prospects informational cadence set up so we get Ashley and I and the rest of the firm knows what's going out. But we also know, okay, it's been 6 weeks with this group of clients. Is there something we can help them with or talk to them about? So we're using AI a little bit to ease that process.
Sure.
Again, I don't think it's going to replace anybody, but I think it can make me more efficient at meeting those clients, and that's how I've done it. And I think whenever we lost a client too, and everybody loses clients, I always ask them, obviously what did we, sometimes they tell me, sometimes they don't because they're leaving.
Yeah.
But like I want to know, hey, if it was, hey, we didn't hear from you in 6 months, and that's my fault, that's our fault. So I always ask them that question, and a lot of them I become friends with, and there's often good reasons, like their son got in the business or something like that. But I do try to keep track and see where we're making mistakes, and hopefully, we have a pretty nice schedule of when we're talking to people. The one thing I want to make sure is certain clients only want to be talked to every 6 months.
Yeah.
Some guys say 3 months, and so I have to figure out individually. Just, and you can set that up on your CRM. That's how we've got it set up.
Right.
So.
I think that's something that anytime you look at the sales and stuff like that, they always talk about the number of touches that you have with your clients and stuff like that. But that is you got to try to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
You don't want to kill them with communication because then they just kind of get fed up with it. But you also don't want to be to the other extreme. Well, I'm here when you called. Well,
right.
You need more than that, so
that's hard too. That is a hard part of this job because you don't really have a scorecard to tell you you're talking too, you're calling me too much. You're doing the right things. You kind of have to read that and get to know your clients better and make sure that you understand them. Because when you know that, you can get a feel for how much they want.
Now, have you guys done any client surveys and things like that? How has that worked for you, and what did you use that for?
We've done a few of those, not a ton. I think we used it for. There's been some weird times over the last 5 years since I've been here. Obviously, COVID.
Yep.
Several different presidential elections, some wars. So we sent out some things just to talk to them about, hey, especially during COVID, we said, we're not closed down. Well, how much, and like to a man, everyone appreciated it and said, or a person and said, yeah, I'd like to talk. And we use that because sometimes people were not, they were like, hey, I'm okay. So we'll do a survey once in a while on how much, if there's concerns in the marketplace. And often I do a smaller one of maybe 10 clients I know pretty well and just say, hey, is there anything you want us to talk about? I'm sending this out to a few. And then they'll say, if I get a lot of yeses, I'll be okay, let's reach out to everyone. We did a Zoom call with 30 clients during COVID just to talk to people. It wasn't one of those, everyone's drinking during COVID, but it was like more like, here's what we're seeing in the markets. This is how Shaker's responding. And we told them some stocks that we had sold and some stocks that we had bought. And they were interested in that. They said, okay, that makes sense. So we've done it a little bit. Yeah, we've done it a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's something that looking at it, that from a marketing standpoint and just, client service, I think lots of times that's something that gets overlooked, or somebody will do it, but then they won't ever take that data that they have and do something with it. I think that's always, something to look at. Over the, your 5 years that you've been at Shaker Investments now, how have you seen things change for the business owners?
You talking about the business owners I call on, or the
yes, yeah, business owners you call on.
It's pretty interesting because when I started here, we didn't have a marketing plan, and so over the last 5 years, I think people have got to know Shaker, and we've done some PR work, and we're getting our name out there. What I've liked about some of the business owners, some of them have relationships, which is with wealth managers and with advisors, which is great. And what I've talked to them about is, hey, let me be a second look for you.
Mhm.
let me take a look at how and a lot of times I'll come back and say, you got a great plan. And sometimes they'll say, if we were doing this, we'd do it a little differently this way. And the business owners are starting to get a lot more comfortable with Shaker and our firm.
Right.
Uh, I think that uh, there is some concern over, where the economy is going to go in the next,
Yeah.
which is normal, we're not calling for a recession. The US is more of a consumer driven economy now, and it just seems like people are still spending money. But you have seen just more cautious out of the business owner, which makes sense, given what the changes in the fiscal and monetary policy. And so we're trying to put out a little bit more information, like maybe a white paper once a quarter to some of those people that have asked for things like that. But on our end, it's just been a matter of getting our story out and getting them comfortable. And now, I want to just become part of their routine. And if they have a situation where they want two providers, we've done that with people too. And I work with, we're great. We're really good at equities. We don't do fixed income. So you might have someone who works in that business. I'll do the equities for them.
Right, right. Now, how do you guys incorporate that in? Because lots of times people think that, okay, if I have to have this one wealth manager or whatever, they're supposed to take care of everything that I possibly could think of that I want. How do you guys work with them?
Well, I've actually referred business to some of the wealth managers the other guys we're working with. I know it's got to be a two-way street.
Yep.
If somebody partners with me, we've tried hard to develop relationships in the Midwest with other people that we can help too.
Mhm.
And I think that I think they're comfortable. I think a lot of the wealth managers, okay, Brad is willing to be a partner with me on this stuff. And again, at the end, you're just trying to make the best result for the client.
Right,
And that's what I try to explain to when I'm working with the client. I said, look, if you want me to work with them, I can do that. And over time, I've developed a relationship with 4 or 5 wealth managers that do things better than I do, where I think we do the equities pretty well. And again, that's probably the right number for us. Like if a business owner came to me and said, can you look at my whole plan? I say, I've got some partners I work with, just like on the accounting side. We've got some accounting firms that we work with, and I hope to quarterback it and sort of branch it out and be either the lead or the number two when
right.
they're looking for people.
I think the important part of that is that making sure that all the professionals are talking. Too many times people, you know, are afraid to let their professionals talk because they think, oh my God, I'm going to get a bill from each one of them. This is going to be crazy. And I always try to tell people most of the time, you're not getting a bill from anybody.
Right.
If we're all talking, because we are truly trying to do what's best for the client,
Right.
and not for ourselves. It's more the professionals that are trying to talk over people's heads and talk in acronyms and kind of keep them in the dark that you have to worry about, not the ones that are openly communicating with the other professionals.
Yeah, a good example. We have a doctor group in Youngstown. And we go down there once a year. There's 15 doctors that have invested with us over the years, and each professional presents their part at the dinner,
Mhm.
and we all have a cordial relationship. And I've referred business to that group. They've referred business, and we're all on the same page. Like we're trying to generate returns in our spot for those clients. And if I could get 10 more of those and convince people it would work, I would do it because
Yeah.
it works out. We have a good relationship, and yeah, and we just continue to. It's been going on for about 10 years now, and it's a model that works.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Um, in your experience, what are some of the financial blind spots that business owners have that they don't know that they have?
Um, I think as a business owner, one of those I learned when I was a commercial lender was as your business is growing, uh, growth is great, but if you have what I'll call permanent working capital in that business, that's monies that becomes just part of your infrastructure that maybe should not have been there. So I've seen some businesses grow too quickly and not see that they're maybe their balance sheet is changing a little bit more than it probably should. I know on our end, I look at the numbers monthly, and we don't have any, it's not a business where you need uh, term debt or a small working capital facility. But I look at our trade, our payables. I try to keep track of, um, I keep track of everything. But when I see something changes, it's usually percentages. I'll go, okay, why is this percentage so much different? It's all about looking, from my mind, looking at a lot of the percentages and seeing what's changed on that balance sheet. And that's where that's where I spend a little bit more time as running the small business to make sure that, our financials are in line to where we want to be. And we've got a full-time controller, and she does a great job. But we've had instances where maybe we didn't get a group of receivables out or something. There was a mistake that was made. So that's one blind spot. I think other blind spots are this isn't really financial, but sometimes if a strategy isn't working, I've seen businesses, and I've done it myself, where I didn't tack quick enough or change quick enough. Big example for us, like the larger consultants, we're too small for them, and I have an ego, and I think I can get in there, I can do this, and I'm spinning my wheels on that, and so and I ended up talking to some of them and saying, hey, I'm not there yet, but when I'm at this level, I'm just going to keep you updated on our strategy. And so I made a decision. Let's go after the mid-size and the small-size consultants. It's more of a sweet spot for us, and I probably did it a year too late. It was a mistake that. I should have recognized it more, and I didn't. But now I'm totally fine with that decision. And I think the larger consultants respect that. They're like, okay, Brad isn't calling on me each quarter, but I say, let's do a once a year summary. When we get to this number, let's do a quarterly meeting. That's how it worked. But that was a mistake that I made that I think I could have done quicker.
Yeah. Hindsight's 20/20, right?
I know,
Yeah,
but I always
yeah,
think,
yeah.
but I think I can fix everything. That's another thing. Like,
Right,
I can do
right.
this.
Well, I think all of us as business owners feel that way because people come to us all the time to fix their problems.
Yeah.
So lots of times we think that we can, but it's great that that, hey, sometimes I got to hand this off to somebody else because we're not there. I think that's really important to be able to look at that. One of the things that I find fascinating is I'm talking to you about financial blind spots, and you're talking about the balance sheet, and it's
Mhm.
like the number of time that small business owners probably look at their balance sheet is slim to none. Most of the
Yeah.
time, they're always looking at the profit and loss.
Yeah. The
They
P&L.
want to know, hey, taxes, what am I going to pay, and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it's you brought us some great points that it's important, really important to look at that balance sheet. And lots of times, and as the CPA, I can learn more from the balance sheet than I can a profit and loss most of the time about the strength of a business.
Yeah, I love the P&L when it's going the right way, obviously. But when I was a lender, the smartest guys would always go right to the second page, which was the balance sheet, and then the cash flow statement.
Yep.
It made me. That's just how I think about small businesses. But also, yeah, it's just a big part of the puzzle that needs to be focused on too.
Right, right. Brad, we covered a bunch of stuff here real quick. What have I not asked you that you wish I had?
Um, I just think when clients are one question that comes up a lot, like when the market's going great and everybody thinks that they're doing well, clients often miss that, maybe they aren't performing as well as, certain, they're not performing as well as a benchmark or not, they're not hitting their goals. It's like I talk to clients and, when everything's going up and to the right, they seem pretty happy. And then I'll say, well, here are the 2 or 3 things I think you need to focus on to make sure that you are getting the right path. And so I talk to them about, are you growing as fast as the market? Is this meeting your needs? And I just think that at times asking your financial advisor, and I like when I get questions, and if I don't know the answer, I'll say, I'll get back to you. I don't have the
Right.
answer. I just think a lot of times when things are up and to the right, people think that they're doing well. And I just think whenever you meet with your advisor, what I like is they put together a list of questions. And if they haven't, I'll say, look, these are the 5 questions I would ask me if I were you. And let's go through that. And so And I think we're going to hit a choppy time where clients and wealth managers are going to need to, really understand if they are outperforming or underperforming. And you got to communicate to the clients, because I think the next couple of years are going to be a little harder than the last 5. So
Yeah.
I would ask questions about your financial performance. Am I on plan? Am I outperforming benchmarks? We compete against different benchmarks, but like I always tell people, if I can't beat the benchmark, I should be out of business, and you should invest in that benchmark.
Right.
And they start to understand it, have communicated enough that they know what that means, and they know that I'm trying to meet their goals, and so hopefully we're doing that for clients.
Right. I think basically what I'm hearing you say is, you need to have an open dialogue with whoever your advisor is and talk to them and kind of hold them accountable just like they hold you
Yeah.
accountable.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And not when they do it, it's not in a bad way. It's just, hey, this is just
Right.
part of the job, it's part of the business. And if I've done really well, I should communicate that. And if we've done poorly, I need to communicate that too. That's just, you're not going to win every time. It's if we can beat the market 50% of the time, that sounds, but that's all we try to do. We try to outperform in down markets by 1 or 2%. And in up markets, we think we have the best stocks, and that's when we outperform for people. And hopefully, that's it's going to be tough, I think, the next year, the 2 years, but that's okay. You got to compete in all the markets.
Right. Right. I think it's those that go and hide when the market's down are the ones that you really need to start questioning things.
Yeah.
Because if they're hiding from you when things are down, my guess is they're not hitting any of their benchmarks.
Yeah, I had a good boss who told me, that's the hardest part. That when we make a mistake, that's when you got to get on the phone, and that's when you can talk to people. And I would say most people, when you do that, they're understanding, and they respect the fact that you picked up the phone and made that call. And it's hard to do. I mean, no one likes to deliver bad news,
Oh
but
yeah.
everybody likes to say, "Oh, they beat numbers, sales are great." And I'm like, yeah, but if when we make a mistake, that's part of our mantra here. Hey, we got to identify it, figure out why, and then improve it. But also, we talk to clients about that.
Right. Right. So, Brett, if people like what they hear today, they want to talk to you, they want to learn more, about Shaker Investments. How can they reach out to you? How can they find out more about Shaker?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is, our website's shakerinvest.com. They can reach out to me directly on my email, brad@shakerinvest.com. We've got a package of information that if people wanted to learn more about us and what we could do for them, we've really tried to identify how we might be a little bit different, how we might be able to help people. And also, like I mentioned, that second look, some people are happy with their advisor, but they want to learn about certain doing things a different way or how we're doing things. We're totally open to working with people in that context too.
Great. Brad, really appreciate your time today. Enjoyed our conversation.
No, thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Hey, this week my guest was Brad Wheeler, and he's the president of Shaker Investments, and I'll see you guys next week.